Soldering. We're going to touch a little bit on soldering today, and we're going to throw in some measuring and some free PDF worksheets as well. So I know last week we were talking about the price guide that I made, a little Excel spreadsheet that you could download for free at jewelrymonk.com, just to kind of help you do some pricing, kind of figure out the labor that goes into it, the materials, the metal, and kind of get you in the ballpark. But this week we're going to touch on soldering all week. So today and in the following video this week will be on soldering. Today we're going to touch on this. I got some of this pattern wire. It's a silver wire and it's got a pattern on it. You probably can't see it too well, but and I want to cut those into lengths and make some basic wedding bands out of them, or some bands. So the first question is, or the first thing I need to figure out is, how much do I need to cut for specific sizes? And a lot of times you can take it and wrap it around your trusty mandrel and kind of get you close. But if you go to jewelrymonk.com, I've got a worksheet, and it's called the ring size conversion chart. So if you look here, it'll tell you what size ring you want, and it'll tell you the diameter. It'll also tell you the radius, and it'll tell you the circumference. So what I'll do is I'll look on there and say, okay, I want a size 8, and it says the circumference is 57.15. And then it also mentions that when you do that, you've got to measure the thickness of the wire that you're using and add that to your dimension, so that the calculation comes out right. Because the way that when you bend this, it's you need to know how thick it is to add that to the end so that it comes out close. So on this one, I wanted it a size 8. It said 57.15. You take the thickness, it's like 1.75, so roughly 59. So I did cut it already, and it's just a hair over 59. And I leave a little bit extra so that I can clean out the ends, so that when I solder them together, they're nice and flush. So I'm going to take this and take the metal, and the first thing, before I bend it around, I'm going to use these pliers, and they're flat on one side, half round on the other, and put the half round to the inside of the ring shank, just so it doesn't get tool marks. And I've talked before about how I modify all my tools so that they leave less tool marks. I've done the same thing on this. So on the inside of this, I've taken out all the scratches. I've kind of made a smooth area, and then on these edges as well, I clean those up as well, so that there's not a nice. So I've taken off that sharp edge so that when I do use them, that doesn't cut into the metal that I'm using, so I have to clean it up later. So one of the things you always got to look when you're finishing your jewelry, look at the things that you're cleaning up, whether it's tool marks or scratches or stuff. And it's like, okay, where did that come from? Did I cause that when I was creating it? And if I did, can I modify the tool so that I don't do that next time, so that I'm not cleaning it up? So you're always looking to create less work later on. So every time you do something and there's a tool mark that you got to clean up, it's like, okay, now I got to figure out, is that tool mark necessary, or can I avoid it? So always be thinking about your tools that you're using and modifying them so that they create less work down the road. So that's a free tip for you. You didn't have to pay for that one. So, okay, so I'm gonna take this and put it right on the end, and I'm just gonna bend that just a little bit, and I'm gonna do that on both sides, just a little. Because when I wrap this around the mandrel, that very end is kind of hard to get to bend, just because there's no leverage to get it to bend. So I use this to bend it first, and then when I bend the rest of the ring around the mandrel, then it's a little bit easier and it flows a little bit better, rather than having everything bent and these two ends stick out and have to go after it with a hammer. And then especially on something that's got a design on it, you don't want to be hammering on this because you're going to be flattening your design. So and when I'm doing this, I'm not squeezing real hard because I'm conscious of of not destroying that design. So I'm just holding it real good, and you can get the pliers as well that have like the nylon inserts on them. I've got some of these that I make that's just they got leather on the inside, and you can use those as well just to kind of bend it. The leather is going to keep the design from getting flattened. So now I just take this and stick my thumb on there and just kind of wrap it around the size 8. And you can see it's just about there. And you can see if I squeeze that together, it's going to come together pretty close, about an 8. And I found that worksheet I always add a little bit extra, just because, again, you're going to be filing, and then once you get everything soldered together and you round it, it's going to stretch up just a little bit. So let's take our leather pliers. I'm just going to take this and just kind of manhandle it, or jewelry handle it into shape there. See, it's just about there, and that's about where I want it, because I'm going to go in there with a file and file those ends nice and flush. So if I can find my file, this is the file that I'm going to use. This is called an equaling escapement file. So let's see if I can throw this down there. I'm just gonna make sure that these ends butt up nicely. I said butt. You can say that on the internet nowadays. So then I'm just gonna take this and run this equaling file through there. What I usually do when I cut this stock off of this, I'll use a saw to cut it, but I was in a hurry, so I went ahead and used my semi-flush cutters, which leaves a little bit extra to file. Now this is the way I like to do it, but if I'm in a hurry and time is not on my side, then what I'll do is I'll come in with my snap-on sanding disc, and I'll put that right in there and squeeze it together, and it just makes for a little bit quicker work. This only cuts on one side, so you got to flip this around and do that to the other side as well. And there you go. You can see this inside edge is nice and flush. Okay, so since I did use a sanding disc on there, I want to clean this out good, just so that there's not any sandpaper debris. So I'm just going to go steam that off real quick. But if you don't have a steamer, you can use water, you can use a toothbrush, whatever you can. You just don't want any debris in there that's going to affect the solder. Okay, so now I'm going to take this and bend it so that the two ends are flush. And again, I'm using the pliers that have the leather inserts in them, just so that they don't leave flat spots on the design. I'm just taking my time just to make sure everything is nice and flush. This probably takes the most time. You just want to make sure that everything is nice and flush. This way, you don't want it offset this way, or you don't want it higher or lower. So you just want everything, and the the way that I usually gauge is on the inside. I just want to make sure that the inside is nice and level. And this is why I went ahead and pre-bent the edges so that they come together like this and not like kind of like that. So that looks pretty good there. So now I'm going to set that up here and get ready to solder it. So now when I solder this, I want to flux the area really good and also protect it with a, and on this one I probably don't necessarily need to protect it with a barrier just because I'm going to liver of sulfur blacken it. But this is my barrier that I use to prevent fire scale and fire stain, and it's a mixture of denatured alcohol and powdered boric acid. And what that does is just leaves a coating on the piece so that it protects it from oxygen when you're soldering. And what I'll usually do is let that sit and evaporate so that film, that boric powder film is all over it. But for time's sake, I'm just going to burn off the alcohol. Now I'm going to take my flux, which is handy flux, and I'm just going to coat the area that I'm soldering really good. Now the flux will do two things. One, it will protect that solder joint from oxygen, because silver and oxygen don't like to play well together when you're soldering. I get a lot of feedback because I say soldering when people say no, it's soldering. So when I think about it, I'll try and correct myself, but most time I'm just going to say soldering. So I'm going to get a flame that's kind of a neutral flame. I don't want it an oxidizing flame that's real sharp and hissy. I want one that's, but I don't want a reducing flame that's got the orange in there. So it's just kind of a medium flame, a nice little soft triangle. So I'm going to heat this up. And I've already pre-cut the solder that I'm going to use, and I want to use as little solder as possible because I don't want the solder to flow into the design. So you can kind of see the solder that I use. I cut two pieces because usually I end up dropping one. This time it looks like I didn't drop it. So, and I always elevate my work when I solder because solder follows heat. So I'm going to take the solder, put it on the top of the solder joint and heat it from underneath so that solder will pull through the solder joint all the way. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more heat. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing there. I use my solder pick just to make sure that the solder is right where I want it to be. And I'm using hard sterling silver solder. And it flowed already. Whenever I see it flow, I want to heat it up just a little bit again, just to make sure that it flows all the way through the solder joint. Solder joint. See, it soldered nicely. I'll let that cool down a little bit and then I'll throw it in my pickle. Alright, so I got the piece out of the pickle, and after I take it out of the pickle I rinse it, and I've got a little dish here that's got water and baking soda in it just to neutralize any of the acid from the pickle. And see, the solder flowed nicely. It didn't flow too much into the design, which is what I wanted to preserve, that design area. Now if I would have taken a little bit more time, I could have matched up the design so that the pattern blended in perfectly, but on this one I didn't. The design is so busy that you're not going to really see the the design. If you look, there's two flowers that I could have made sure that the two flowers come together perfect, but there's like half of a flower and then a flower goes into it, but it still looks good. So so now I'll just take this, clean up the inside around it. I'll throw it on my mandrel, and I'll use the nylon hammer, and just so I don't flatten up the design, and just kind of come in and round it. And what I've found is that on that spreadsheet that I work, that shows the length of it, I always try and cut just a little bit extra, just because sometimes the thickness of the metal will matter or affect it a little bit more. So you see on this one I tried to come in at an 8, and right now it's like 7 3/4, which is okay, because once I get it filed and sanded and everything, then it's going to come pretty close to where I want it. So see, it's nice and round now. I just go in and file the inside, make it nice and flush, sand it, and then like I said, I'm going to take that and blacken it and with liver of sulfur and polish it up, and it'll look nice. So again, there's just a quick little soldering tip, how to preserve. Now, what I could have done on this design is taken some anti-flux and painted the design so that the solder doesn't flow into the design. But I'm fairly confident if I use a little bit of solder and control it a little bit, it's not going to flow into that design. If I use a whole bunch of solder, it's going to flow everywhere, so then I'll want to get anti-flux. And I've got some videos. If you search on the YouTube channel for anti-flux, there's 1 or 2 videos that shows what you can use. Some people use whiteout, that works okay. I make my own anti-flux with rouge shavings and mineral oil, which works pretty good. You know, it's just something that I didn't, one time when I needed anti-flux and I didn't have anything. Some people use yellow ochre, there's things, but I didn't have anything, so I created my own out of rouge, and it works good. So that's kind of what I use now, just because sometimes you don't have whiteout, sometimes you don't have anti-flux or yellow ochre. You just got to make do with what you have handy. So I'll turn this light down here. So, but on this one, I was confident that I didn't use a whole bunch of solder, so it wasn't going to flow into the design. So yeah, so there you go. That's just touching on soldering today. And again, you go to jewelrymonk.com, and I think it's under, trying to remember where it is. So if you go into training, there's a tab on the top that says training, and then there's one that says free stuff, I think it is, and it's the same page that was the pricing guide was on. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see one that says ring size conversion chart, and you can download this. It's just a PDF, print it out, keep it at your bench. You can see I've had it here for a while, so I got notes all over the place, but it's just a quick handy guide that when you're trying to figure out how long of a piece to cut, if I want it to be a certain size, then I keep it hanging on the wall so that whenever I need to reference it, it's right there. I don't have to go to my computer and pull it up. So, and as always, I'm not great at explaining where it is on my website, so I will put a link in the description. So hopefully that helps. Yeah, thanks for stopping by today, and make sure you subscribe as always so that you don't miss any of the stuff we got going on here. We're constantly creating content. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time. This is Doug with the Jewelry Monk Studio.